Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Colonial Classics, a food demonstration with the House of Seven Gables live in the Gables Cafe kitchen. Tonight, I'm going to walk you all through making a colonial dinner called Baked Chickens in Winter. It's from a 1594 cookbook called Good Housewives Handmade for the Kitchen. The House of the Seven Gables strives to be a welcoming, thriving, historic site and community resource that engages people of all backgrounds in our inclusive American story. Continuing this work takes effort, time, and money. We would like to thank our members who are here tonight and invite you to become a member if you are not. We have some great programs and member events lined up this year. We have included a link for membership in the chat, and we also included a link for donations to help us cover the cost of this demonstration and to support our work as a community resource. Any amount is greatly appreciated. We encourage you to support small businesses in your community whenever you can. We purchased our spice selection today from Salem Spice on Pickering Wharf. I would personally like to thank all the people who have supported this program and got it running safely during COVID-19, especially Julie Harrison Bishop and Deb Costa, who are again here with me as my support crew. If you have a question or comment at any time during this demonstration, please type it into the chat and I'll try and read it out as they come in. The goal of this demonstration is to connect with everyone, so don't be afraid to engage in the chat with either me or each other. Now, who's ready to get started? In a different place this time, so we gotta raise the camera a bit. Great. All right, so like I said, we're gonna be making baked chicken in winter, which comes from a 1594 cookbook recipe. So I'm gonna read a little bit of that recipe to you. If you ever want a challenge with cooking or baking, just pick up a Colonial cookbook and try and make one of the recipes. This has been one of the most challenging things for me in any sort of cooking. So I'll give you examples. So first off, to bake chickens in winter, cut off their feet and truss them. I will not be cutting off any chicken's feet during this demonstration. I just want to make that very clear for everyone. We're using chicken thighs, boneless, got them at Stop and Shop. Okay, and then put them in the pies. Take to every pie a certain of currants or prunes and put them in the pie with the chickens. Then take a good quantity of butter to every chicken and put in the pie. Then take a good quantity of ginger and salt and season them together. And put them in the pie. Let it bake in the space of an hour and a half. When they can be bacon, yep, it says bacon. Take sauce as is aforementioned and so serve them in. There are no measurements in that recipe. So I had a great time talking with friends and family to try and figure out how was I going to do this. So I used bits and pieces of other people's recipes. So the pie pastry comes partially from a friend of mine who made a pie, because I don't recall ever making a pie crust from scratch, ever. So it was definitely a brand new experience for me. So we're gonna get started with making the dough first off. We're gonna move kind of fast moving the dough because it is a hot water crust pastry, which needs to be warm in order for you to make it pliable and movable. Kind of feels like when you've been working with Play-Doh a lot. There we go. Yeah, working with Play-Doh a lot. So what I have in here right now is just 4 cups of flour. And then I'm gonna pour in my hot butter that's been mixed with water a little bit. And so that goes in there, just plop it all in at once. That's it. And then you have your 1 whole egg and 1 egg yolk, specifically 1 egg yolk, which I thought was really interesting because that's the only measurements you get in this recipe is the amount of eggs you're supposed to have in it, which I thought was very, very interesting. And then some sugar. And then you just mix it all in a little bit. I have the chat over here, so if you guys have any questions, I'll be able to read them out there. All right, so get it going a little bit, because then it's gonna be very hands-on. You're gonna take this out and move it with your hands. You wanna be able to mold it into your crust.
One of the questions is how much butter and water?
How much butter and water? It was 2 sticks of butter and 6 tablespoons of water.
And how much sugar?
Sugar, oh goodness, how much sugar? Deb, how much sugar is on that recipe over there? I completely blanked.
It is for the.
I think it's a tablespoon? Yeah, pie
And,
crust.
1 tablespoon.
1 tablespoon, there you go. This is my 7th time making this pie, so I do have things pretty much memorized, but still difficulty with numbers. All right, let's see about getting this all out here. Ooh, there we go. And then just move around a little, mix it all in.
What is the name of the cookbook the recipe came from?
The name of the cookbook, I have to read that one. It is The Good Housewives Handmade for the Kitchen. And I'm not entirely sure who actually wrote it. I had some different sources. So some of them say it was by a man named, where'd his name go? Thomas Dawson, who wrote a number of different colonial era cookbooks during the time. Oh, sorry, I'm going to continue that in a second. First, you got to separate your dough so you have your top and your bottom. So I'm just going to plop that down there. So some people say it was by Dawson, and then other people say it was anonymous, which usually in a historical context, if it's anonymous, it's most likely written by a woman. Up until the mid 1600s, most cookbooks were written and published by men, because women were less educated, so they weren't able to have that access that men were able to. Ooh, there's a lot going on there. Yeah, definitely we're gonna email the recipe later. Let's see. I don't know why my board is moving so much. It hasn't moved the entire day. All right, let's see. So one of the reasons I'm not cooking with a whole chicken is because colonial chickens were a different size than the chickens we have today. Our chickens today are a lot bigger than a colonial chicken would be. It's most likely they would have used a Nankin Bantam chicken, which is very common in England during this era. But our chickens today are a lot bigger. And so I thought it would be a good idea to use some boneless chicken thighs. The book, unfortunately, is not available through the gift shop because it's out of print. But he does have some other books that you can purchase. We unfortunately don't have them at the bookshop now. We do have a number of cookbooks, such as Taste and Tales of Massachusetts, which I highly recommend. I'm going to be making some recipes out of that in the near future. All right, so we get that all nice and flat. It's pretty easy to work with. It takes some effort. And if you have any holes, you can fix it. It's a really sturdy dough, which is very different from short crust pastry, which is what I thought this pie was originally supposed to be, short crust pastry. But that would involve cold water instead of hot water. All right, yeah, you just pull it over. Make sure it's all nice and snug in there. All right, now I need you gotta season your chicken now. All right, so I have my chicken thighs already in here. And then I have, let's put on my glove. Working with chicken, probably good to wear gloves sometimes. Yeah. And I have some salt and ginger here. I believe it was a half teaspoon of ginger and a quarter teaspoon of salt, I believe. Yeah. Pop that in there. And then just season. Move around. Pretty easy. With those measurements, you can do more or less, depending on your like of chicken and salt. That's just what I found worked best for me when I was creating the recipe.
Would Bantam chicken possibly taste like our modern chicken today, or would it be a little bit different?
I actually hadn't thought about that. I think, so for those of you who couldn't hear the question, it's whether or not the Nankin Bantam chicken would taste different than our chickens today. So the Nankin Bantam chicken, from my understanding, is close to it would have been bred to become the chicken we have today. So I unfortunately have a limited understanding of chickens and having chickens. But Deb in the back is telling me that it was probably tougher, not as meaty. Meaty, yeah. So it wasn't as big, so it wasn't as much. Nankin Bantam chickens were really good for hatching eggs and laying eggs, which is one of the reasons they were probably very popular and used around here, because you didn't have as many animals because you had to bring them over from England. So it would be good because you wanted more eggs and you'd be able to more sustainable. So now we're going to plop in some butter. This is a tablespoon of butter that I just put into cubes, and then your currants. So since last time I've done some research on currants, currants do come from the currant berry, and then I'm going to make the lid while I'm talking about currants. And make sure your dough is still warm, because it becomes very difficult to manage when it becomes cold. So yes, currants grow best in places that have very cold winters but very warm summers. So Scandinavia, yep, is a good place. And there are some varieties in North America. I actually was listening to some oral histories that we have here at the Gables, and there was a woman who lived down where the National Maritime Historic Park is, in Salem, and she had currants growing in her backyard, which I think is really cool. Unfortunately, you're not going to see currants really growing nowadays, because they aren't legal to grow in Massachusetts except for certain areas, because they grow this certain fungus that potentially could kill our pine forest. So we don't want that around. So are there any questions? No? All right. How many pounds of chicken? Yeah, it was about a pound of chicken. There we go. What other berries could be used? So you could use prunes is in the recipe as a suggestion. My coworker tried it out and he said he wants to try it with apples, which I think actually will really work. Right, let's flip this up. Oh, I'm forgetting my hole. Wait, very important that before you put on the lid that you put a hole in the center, because that's where we're gonna pour our sauce in later. All right, almost set with constructing the pie, which is good. It's very quick when you have all your recipes, all your ingredients to make the pie. There we go. Yeah, my dough's starting to get cold, so it's starting to get a little bit more difficult to move around. There we go. All right, and then just use a fork, close it up. I've had some spillage in the past because I didn't close it well enough, so definitely make sure your pie's closed. And I'm going to put the pie, when I put it in the oven, it's going to be on a pan, because I had some spillage, and then we had some smoke in my apartment, which was not a good thing. So you want to definitely make sure you have the whole. I have a broken half cup that doesn't have the handle anymore. So I've just been using that. You can just use a knife and just cut out a circle for yourself, or whatever works best for you. If you have any leftover dough, you can decorate the top of your pie. Since my dough is getting pretty cold now, I won't be able to do that. But if you're working fast enough, you'll be able to do that. Concentrate with the sharp object. Here we go. Oh, black or golden raisins as an alternative. That could work. Yeah, I agree. Apricots and prunes. All right, so we are ready to put this in the oven. So you guys are gonna follow me. Deb's gonna escape out of the kitchen. Yeah, so you have plenty of extra that you can do. Right. Oh, my hole isn't centered. It's fine. All right, here. All right. So now we're in the kitchen. Yay. All right, we're just gonna slide this in. Like I said, I'm putting it on to the pan just in case we get some accidental leakage. Pop that in. There we go. All right, and then that's gonna stay in there. That's gonna stay in there for an hour. Okay. Oh, my hands are all full of dough. Could I have the wipes? I didn't think that through. Like I said, it's hands on, which is great. Just throw it at me. Yay! Oh no, you were so close. That was worse. All right. Here we go. So now Deb's going to read out some questions if you guys have any questions. All right, so now we get to the second part of making this pie, which is the sauce. Now I had some interesting experiences trying to do the sauce because, like I said, no measurements. It recommends that you use Malmsey Madeira wine. So Madeira wine comes from the Portuguese Madeira Islands off the coast of Africa. And it is a very sweet fortified wine, which means it has distilled alcohol in it, most likely brandy. Ours actually does have brandy in it. It does come from California though, instead of Madeira. It still works and it tastes pretty good. But it is very sweet. It is a dessert wine. So we are going to use Madeira. Malmsey is very, very sweet Madeira. So definitely a dessert wine. You can also make this with white wine, which is what I did the previous 5 times I made this recipe. I just used a nice Chardonnay that I liked. So whatever works for you. We decided to go with the Madeira today because it paired well with the currants. I tried Madeira for the first time today, which was really great to try and pair it with that. So we're going to make the sauce. So here I have a 1/3 cup of heavy cream, and then I have I don't remember the measurement, and taken away the recipe, so I can't read it.
Candy, would the pie have been served on its own, like its own dish, or would it have been served with other stuff on the side?
I think that would depend. So served on its own or stuff on the side. So, okay. I think it would depend on whether you're not having a banquet. I think it depends on the kind of family gathering you're having. The Turners, for instance, probably would have had it with more more servings along with it, different courses of dinner and supper for their guests, whereas people that have more humble beginnings and origins in lives would have probably just had it by themselves. I don't have a fork to be able to stir this. There we go. Just leave it there. So many rules. All right, so with this, it's pretty easy. You just put it all in and stir it up. So got a 1/3 cup of the Madeira. Put it in there. And then we have 2 egg yolks. It's in there. And then we have a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon and a teaspoon of sugar. This goes right in there. Stir it up. I don't know why cinnamon is so difficult to stir into things. Yeah, it's a really easy sauce, and what you're gonna do is after the pie has been in there for an hour, take it out, put in your sauce, and then you put it back in for a half hour and let it cook together. Just get a little bit stirring. There we go. All right, so we're gonna take out the other pie that I have that's been hiding in the other oven, and I'm gonna show you how to pour it into the pie. Quick transfer, here we go. All right, so this is why the hole is very, very important. Ooh, what's going on?
The pour.
Oh, pour, got it. Sorry, when someone comes just running into the room, you gotta pause for a second. All right, there we go. And then what you want is for it to cover the space. So into those holes, so you gotta be a little bit patient in there. You don't want it to overflow and get on the lid. And if you don't use all of it, that's fine. Ooh. Yeah, it's just filling in all those spaces, all those air pockets that you have between the chicken. What? Yeah, it's all right, I think. Yep, we're starting to get over. So we're gonna put that back in the oven for another half hour. Carefully.
Kaylee, what is the total cooking time?
The total time is an hour and a half. So then this is gonna go back in the oven. There we go, for a half hour. And then you take it out and it's done. But if you're unable to finish the whole thing in one sitting, like I have had the issue because I have 2 of these pies in my refrigerator right now because I've been practicing it so much. If you just zap it in the microwave for a minute, it's good as new. It's fantastic. And really good as leftovers. It's what I've been living on for the past week and a half. So are there any other questions? Can it be baked in a toaster oven? Huh. Something I never considered because space. I don't know how that would work with space.
Well, you have to cut down the ingredients.
Yeah, you'd have to make it smaller. Oh, another way of making this, which I forgot to mention. So if you want, because this dough is very sturdy, you can try and make it standing by itself. So if any of you watch the Great British Baking Show, as I have many times, you can make pies. There's a British form of pie, a hand-raised pie, that is just freestanding by itself. I did try this. It did not go well. At first it was, so what I did was you fold it over the bottom part of a pan, your dough, once you've made it, put it in the fridge so it becomes solid. Like I said, when this becomes cold, it becomes very difficult to move. So about 20 minutes in the fridge, and then you take it out, take it off, so that way you can fill your chicken, put a lid on it, and then put it in the oven. So I did that. And then the butter, I think what happened is the butter in the dough melted, and so it flattened and expanded and made a mess on a pan. So it didn't work. If you're feeling ambitious, you can definitely try and use a springform pan, put the dough inside and lid it, and then cook it in the springform pan. And then you're able to detach it with that lock. And hopefully, if you try this, hopefully it will stand once it's baked. I can't guarantee anything, so that's definitely up to you. If you do figure out and it does work, please tell me. That'd be really cool. So, 2 more questions. All right.
Or at least that. What was the material that the pie dish might have been at that time? And when you let the chicken pie sit before cutting it for a little while?
What material would the chicken pie have been made in?
Probably like
Yeah.
been able to do the stand-up one.
Yeah, the stand-up one, you could have just done an iron skillet sometimes, so like a skillet, just put it in there, put it in your Sorry, I burned my hand a little bit. Yeah, and then they would have had the earthenware,
Mhm.
possibly, would have been able to. So I think it would have depended on what your family could have afforded. Oh, and what was that second question? Oh, having it rest. Yeah, I would have it cool down a little bit before, but having it warm is just fine. Yeah. All right, were there any more questions?
Do you have any suggested side dishes to go with the pot pie, either historic or otherwise?
Oh, suggestions for this. Because I've just been having it. I hadn't thought of anything to have beside it. Yeah, roasted potatoes. You definitely need to have a vegetable in there. Asparagus. I was thinking more green beans. I feel like it'd be good with green beans.
Yep.
Yeah. Guys, I'm just planning my meal this evening because now I have 3 of these chicken pies that I need to do something with. And then the 2 that are in my fridge at home. So much chicken. It's a good thing I really love chicken. All right, now I'm looking off, see, is there any more? We all good?
Winter vegetable, so
Winter vegetable, yes, a winter vegetable. Because this is baked chicken in winter. And we have a wonderful winter setting outside, which you guys can't see it that well because it's getting dark. But it was snowing. Yay, snow! Perfect day to be making baked chicken in winter. So if there are no more questions, I'd like to thank you all for coming and to please join us next month. I'm going to be making dessert, and that's March 31st. So mark that on your calendars, and that is our third and last section of this segment of Colonial Classics. So I really hope you come back so we can finish off our meal. All right, you guys have a great night. Stay safe.